Good evening. It's 7 o'clock, October 7th, 2021. The Zoning Board of Appeals meeting is open. First on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next is the roll call.
John Joy.
Wesley Pettit.
George Slingo.
John Glenn. Hugh Cushing.
First is a public hearing for 35 to 37 Chase Road.
Make a motion that we ask you to be a
Oh, I'm sorry.
full-time member tonight.
I second that motion.
Motion's been made and seconded to have Hugh Cushion made as a voting member. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. My name is Nick Adamopoulos. I'm here on behalf of Verde Organica. We did present you with a small drawing at the time of our proposal at the Old Ethan Allen Mill. And what we're here today asking for is really two different types of questions. One is we are building at some point a subsequent building on the back end of the mill. We just completed some demolition. That building is going to end up being height-wise somewhere between 36 to 40 feet. The bylaw for Dudley allows for 40 feet in that general area. Our question today is whether or not we need to ask for a variance on that building because there will be mechanical equipment being placed on top of that, such as HVAC systems and a elevator shaft, the cap of the elevator shaft. So with those items on top of that building, we would exceed the 40-foot limit in the bylaw. We went to the building inspector with those proposals. We had some back and forth, and it does not appear that the language in the bylaw is very clear of whether that 40-foot threshold means everything on top of the building or just the ridgeline of the building once it's erected. So that's our first ultimate proposal for variance request is if the mechanical equipment on top of that building does need a variance, we would ask for a 12-foot variance at this point because we do believe
12-foot, did you say?
12-foot would ultimately meet our specifications for equipment on top of that. The second item, and we definitely need a variance on this because on the left-hand side of the building in your drawings, you can see that we're proposing building a new stairwell. And that stairwell is going to end up being somewhere between 43 to 45 feet in height at its top ridge line. And ultimately that is clearly over the 40-foot bylaw. So that's being placed in for safety measures and an egress for our employees in that facility in case there's a fire alarm or fire in the building and they can't use the elevator. That would be their major way of getting from the third and second floor of the building to the exterior of the facility. So we're asking for ultimately a variance for those two reasons. One, for the construction of the stairwell, which would go over 40 feet, and ultimately, if there is no clarity on whether the mechanical equipment would count towards that 40-foot, we'd ask for a variance for mechanical equipment to be placed on the structure at 35 to 37 Chase Ave.
Are there any questions for the board, from the board members?
I do have one. I think it's clear, but just to verify it. The existing brick building stays, and that exceeds 40 feet already, am I right?
It does. So the existing build is over 40 feet.
Okay.
So the building that we will likely be going to planning board in the future for in the back where the demolition is currently occurring, that ridge line will not go over 40 feet. That building, we're just concerned with the ultimate mechanical. But the stairwell that we will be attaching to the existing mill building will be somewhere between 43 to 45 feet.
Okay, that's it.
Any other questions? Are there any abutters present? Seeing none.
I make a motion that we close the public hearing.
Second motion.
A motion's been made and seconded to close the public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Discussion.
Discuss. I believe my opinion of the whole thing is the air handlers and all that stuff, I think that's an accessory unit. I don't believe that that's part of it, but that's just my opinion. It'd be like a flagpole if it was on top. You wouldn't count the top of the flagpole.
I don't have any problems with it, but they're asking for 12 feet. If it exceeds that is where my issue is, because it's building. 40 is what they're talking about, 12 extra, 52, and then it's just gonna keep going. So, I mean, 12 feet I can live with because of the units on top, average might be a little less than that, but if it keeps getting higher, that's where I'm gonna struggle with it.
I agree.
Okay, so you wanna give them a variance on it for the 12 feet?
That's it,
And then,
in my opinion.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just add, if I could, because right now the is 12 feet, if we could just get a little bit of leeway in case something does come in and say it's coming back, so if we could take that 12 and maybe give us 3 feet of leeway to 15, if that's okay with the board? That way we're not coming back and doing what you're currently asking.
So my question to that is, if you were asking for the variance up front, why didn't you bring out somebody to?
We do.
Let me finish.
Sorry, I apologize.
Bring somebody out to give you an estimate of how big the units are.
We do, so the estimate currently is around that 12-foot threshold, but there could be some mechanical variance as we finalize what equipment we are going to be purchasing. So right now, the equipment that we are speccing out is around that 12-foot threshold, but in the event that someone comes in with a bid and that project is, that piece of equipment's 13 feet, we'd obviously be over the variance amount. So if I could just ask for that leeway amount, I'd ask. If not, then we would go forward to 12 feet, but just so that we're not coming back for a foot or so. But I'll leave that up to the discretion of the board.
I would go plus or minus 2, but that's my max. But I'll leave it up to you guys too.
Yeah, I just have a question. I mean, you just verbally requested 12 feet. Why didn't you just verbally request 15 feet?
Because in my mind, I knew that the current specs were 12, but I did speak to the architect yesterday, and 15 was the number I was supposed to throw out there, so that is definitely my mistake. I apologize for that. But if it's going to be a plus or 2, if that's the motion, I think we can live with that. We will make it work. Ultimately, we're here to work with the town and whatever the board dictates for us to do.
Perhaps the wording would just be not to exceed 14 feet instead of getting into the plus or minus.
I make a motion to that effect, not to exceed that.
Yeah, that's fine.
okay, then what about the stairway? Or you wanna make them 2 separate?
He's looking for 2 variances, right? So I suppose we gotta have 2 votes.
Okay. Okay, somebody wanna make a motion then?
I make a motion that we grant the variance for the first variance for the,
Yeah,
no
mechanical.
mechanical on the roof not to exceed 14 feet.
I'll second that.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
How about that second, the
stairway.
45 foot for the stairwell?
It's a safety thing for me, I think.
It's a fire escape,
Yeah.
yeah.
Probably is what it has to be,
Hmm.
that size building.
So
Okay.
I make a motion that we grant the variance for the stairwell.
I second that motion.
A motion's been made and seconded to extend the stairway to 45 feet. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Okay, next is a public hearing for 40 Hall Road. The applicant is seeking a variance for property setbacks in Zone Industry 130.
How you doing? Jonathan Angelevich with Hall Road LLC. What we have, and I'll show you guys in a minute, is a proposed cannabis retail store. To kind of bring you up to speed of where this project sits with the town. We have achieved a host community agreement with the Board of Selectmen in the town of Dudley. We have applied for our provisional license with the CCC and are anticipating having that license sometime in December. So we're now to the point of going through the channels and getting permitted to each individual board. We've already got water and sewer permission, and now we're in front of you guys tonight for variances for building setbacks. So, on this plan, I don't know if you guys have the small ones. So what we have is, this Hall Road. It's a proposed 2,000 square foot cannabis retail. We are looking for a variance on we meet the front and one side setback. One side, we only have a 19.1 feet, and the setback is 25. And then the rear, all the existing structures are under 9 feet. We're planning on being 9'1", but the rule is 40 feet. So we're applying for at least a 30-foot variance on that, 31 foot.
And that's it?
Yeah.
You're not asking for variance on the frontage when it requires 200 feet and you only have 140
Oh, sorry,
feet?
and one, yeah, I apologize for that.
And are you not asking for variance on the lot size, which requires 130,830 square feet, and you only have 10% of that?
Sure.
13,895? So that too?
Yep.
So 4
Okay,
areas?
yeah, 4.
Okay. Question that, not to you specifically, maybe one of the other gentlemen know. Does the planning board also need to approve this, and have they had any input
Yes.
on this?
Yes.
We do have to go in front of the planning board as soon as we get our provisional for our special permit through the town. They do have a copy of it, they haven't received it.
They have to do site plan review, right?
Correct. Yep.
Have you provided any research relative to what kind of amount of trade you'll have in the 2,000 square foot building?
We do have a full traffic study done. Actually, I met with the chief this morning about it. He received a hard copy back maybe 2-3 weeks ago. And a security plan done, which he's reviewed also and is accepted.
How many people do you expect per hour or per day?
Boy, let me go on the phone. Do you have that?
So they did do a traffic study. Ultimately, all that data will be presented to the planning board as part of that special permit. But the group that came back ultimately said that during peak hour traffic, turnover would be about 12 cars within that hour. So as long as we have 12 parking spots, the turnover should be handled at that point for continuous turnover. So they ultimately said that this would be, I believe, only a 1 or 2% uptick in traffic on that road. The reason for that is basically because most of the individuals that utilize these facilities now is people are going by them in their normal routine rather than going out of their way and seeing it. So besides maybe the first 2 weeks where you have a new building and people want to come out and see what it is, after that it's really just people that are stopping by on the way through an errand or coming back or going to work. So there's really not an uptick in traffic anymore, as people remember what happened in Leominster and Northampton when the towns got shut down. That doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah, actually, I spent some time observing what happens at the Vault in Webster.
Yep,
Which of course they have a very good parking lot.
yep.
And they're seeing between 40 and 80 people an hour, and I believe that's roughly a 2,000 square foot store.
I'm just going off what the traffic study said. They might be, so it's not 12 people in the hour. What they're saying is you need to have 12 spots that you can continuously turn over within that hour. And that's based upon data that they've pulled mainly from the traffic on the road, and they utilize a dispensary in Millbury called Nature's Remedy, which is, I believe, a 3,000 square foot building that is in a town equivalent to, Webster, Dudley. And they've utilized the historical data from that store, which is at this point, I believe, open for 2.5 years. They try to see it. So I'm not saying there's only gonna be 12 people there in an hour, but their data says if you have 12 parking spots available, which we'll have, more, I believe.
I'm only seeing 6, but are you going to be selling to both medicinal and recreational?
Only recreational. We're not going in for medicinal license.
Okay, well, it doesn't really help because medicinal's lower traffic flow, but okay. You said 12 parking spaces, I see 6. Where are the others?
Where,
There's 6 here, there's 2 on the side here, then there's 1 handicap on the side.
Yeah, well, the handicap.
then we have a lease
The
for-
handicap lot, spot won't go
Then we
into
have
your
a
equation.
lease for 10 spots in the back parking lot over here.
You own that land back there?
We do not, but we're leasing it. 10 spots, 10 parking spots.
And the lease is already in effect,
Yes.
and it runs out when?
It's like, what, yearly technically, but,
So this is something that will expire each year,
right.
so it may or may not continue. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? No? Any abutters present? Someone want to make a motion?
I make a motion, we close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion's been made and second to close the public hearing. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Discussion.
I don't know if it matters, but we do have a 5-year lease to own on this property as well. So at the end of the lease, we would plan on obviously taking ownership, and we would be able to create more parking spots over here.
The discussion, obviously, my concern is the parking. I'd hate to see another situation like we have in a nearby donut shop, because we're near what I consider a pretty bad intersection with Main Street and Hall Road already. I'm sure many people have gone through that intersection. So I'm very concerned about the traffic. I am seeing from other locations a lot of traffic. I mean, it seems like business is brisk. So I don't personally feel that 6 parking spaces is going to do it. And I'm not comfortable with having extra parking be based on an annual renewal of a lease.
I just want to also, just going back to the traffic, which we were going to present to the planning board, is the proposed planning that we bring to the planning board would ultimately say that any vehicles exiting that would ultimately turn left on the Hall Road rather than taking a right towards the courthouse. So based upon that traffic study, they said that the safest way of exiting that facility would be down Hall Road towards the golf course.
I do believe the traffic report states that they only required 8 spots, but we have 9 if you include the handicap.
Yeah, well, I'm not gonna include the handicap in my calculation, because that wouldn't be proper. You have to have at least 1 handicap, and that has to be open for a handicap, so the others may or may not be handicapped people that come in and use it. So you have 6 that I see. Well, I guess you have 8.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought the public hearing was closed.
It is
Okay.
closed.
Well,
Yeah.
discussion, I guess, between us, but.
Well,
Yeah.
more information, I guess.
For myself, I don't think I had enough information, I need to look at it. You got the Toyota dealer that leases all that land and back, and you have the traffic there, you have the regular traffic that they're gonna create. There's a combination of that, the 6 parking spots, I totally agree. If you're just leasing the other ones, there's no guarantee that you're gonna get that after our approval goes on. So I'm a little shaky a little bit on this.
Our lease is with the McGee Toyota.
Excuse me?
Our lease is through McGee Toyota.
Oh, they own that land?
They rent it for themselves.
So it's
Oh, they
third
rent it?
party.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yep.
so it could still be sold ultimately by an owner, yeah.
correct.
Have
So-
you, I mean, well, I guess, never mind, the hearing's closed, so I won't ask that question.
Oh, go ahead, man. Go ahead.
Well, I'm just thinking, there's a plaza not far from there, the plaza seems to lend itself to this kind of business where you have a huge parking lot.
Here, so the situation is, and this is, we spent a very long time in the town hall, this is one of the last spots that is permissible in town, that meets it's not being used. So like, Universal Tag is a building that's being used by the owner, they don't wanna lease it. This gentleman here is zoned properly through the town of Dudley. He is looking to retire in 5 years, so we chose this route.
So
only
the
other piece of
plaza
property that is, what?
It's not zoned.
There's no-
If it was, it'd be a wonderful area,
Yeah,
but
the town of Dudley's
town meeting did
industrial
not zone
zoning
that.
requirement is so small. The other only piece of land is where Mace Adhesives is, which they're not selling any property, because that's where their whole building is. So they the way they spot zone the sections in town, doesn't leave, this was the
I
last
see them
choice.
up.
And the town only has 2 licenses, so, for retail.
Small one don't cut it for me, I'm old.
So there's a very successful, it's not a question, I guess it's just a statement to the other guys, there's a very successful brewery on Route 20 in Charlton. And they didn't allow anybody to take a left exiting, you had to take a right. And yet, even with that, there were a number of accidents with people taking a left as they exited the property and got T-boned from traffic coming along Route 20. So just to say that you must take a left or a right doesn't mean everybody's gonna comply.
Well, we would not take a left onto Hall Road leaving, you would not, we're trying to avoid.
It would not be a
The way we're
left
proposing
onto.
it is you would leave the exit, you would leave,
Yeah.
you would leave and head this way, you would not be able to leave the property and head towards Main Street.
Yeah, unless you did care and you just took
Oh, No,
a
I-
right, you leave.
So, here's his parking spots.
Move them like,
Under
So here's his parking spots.
Yeah,
Where-
and these two. 8, actually.
Then the parking spots lease would be running directly behind the proposed building, adjacent to it. Ultimately, part of our special permit is making sure that traffic study and a plan for traffic is brought to the planning board and addressed there. So it's usually the most widely discussed item during those meetings. So, it's not that we're trying to get by it today, but we're very well aware that it's gonna be the hot topic when we go before the planning board to try to get that special permit. And without the special permit, that is a requirement for us to open. So we had the traffic study done as a bylaw, we have a proposal, we presented it to the chief. If the planning board comes back with any sort of conditions or adjustments, we'll bring those to the individuals that did the traffic study and see if they can make it, feasible through their study. So we're not stuck with the plan at this point, but the traffic study was our starting point that's necessary for our special permit application.
So you haven't gone to the planning board yet?
No, so the planning board, there are 3 steps that have to happen. We got our host community agreement through the selectmen for the agreement with the town to say that we could ultimately move forward with the project. We should ultimately be receiving a provisional license from the CCC hopefully next Thursday. That means that we gave them all of our plans about the operations, our SOPs. They've deemed those to be complete and meet their regulations. Once we have those 2 items, we then can file for our public hearing with the planning board for our special permit, which includes our entire application with the CCC, odor mitigation and energy study, and traffic study. Ultimately, we go there, we ask for the special permit, any conditions that they want to put on there. For retail, sometimes they come back with further information about traffic pattern or, what you can have for greenery around the plant. So those are conditions that planning boards normally put on, but we have not got that special permit yet. I did the one for Chase Ave, and I can tell you that we stood up here for about 45 minutes just discussing traffic. So we understand this is a widely used road. We have the analytical data to back up our plan, but ultimately, if the planning board comes back with other data or with suggestions, we're gonna take those into consideration before opening. Just so you know, if the project does move forward, we, prior to opening, have to give a finalized traffic plan to both the selectmen, planning board, and the chief of police, and an opening plan to ensure that there are no setbacks or holdups on the roads during the 2 opening weekends. So we have to have a plan in place in case there is some sort of crazy traffic that occurs. I can tell you also that due to COVID was one of the things that really helped with traffic for these. While 80 people may come in, a lot of these individuals are now ordering online, where they can come in, show their ID, get through security, pick up their package, pay for it, and leave. So the turnover in traffic has actually picked up since COVID due to online ordering. The CCC has not declared they're taking that away, so that's going to be in place permanently going forward for online orders.
I'm just curious why it didn't go to the planning board first and then come to us. I don't get that concept right now.
I
Because
agree.
they would really take the plan and that's what they do.
Right.
And then they come to us.
Then they come to us.
And say,
Right.
what do you guys think, ladies, think about this? It's kind of like backwards. We approve it or disapprove it, then it goes to the planning board and then they pick it apart.
So I don't, we didn't have to get any variances for Chase Ave at the beginning, but I can tell you when we did that, they did ask whether the Water and Sewer Department had reviewed it, if the fire chief had reviewed it, if they went through all the commissions to see who had conservation and had reviewed it, so I don't know if they're going to ask at that, if ZBA has reviewed it and made a determination of the proposal. I can just speak about what happened with Chase Ave, and they did ask the planner to go through each board or commission that would have a say in this and see if there was a letter of approval coming from them. So I can't address whether that would be an issue with them. If they might turn around and ask us to come back to you and see if we can get the variance. But for Chase Ave, they did ask us what boards would be, need to be consulted, and whether or not we had a letter of approval from them. Conservation was a big one, obviously, for that because we were so close to the river.
So I'm not comfortable personally with just leaving it up to another board to make the decision. I don't think just throwing it around to, or the fire department or the police department. If we see something that concerns us, I think it's okay to ask these questions. So the lot is only 10% of the required lot size. It doesn't have the frontage. Parking is only one of the issues, but that lack of parking concerns me as to what it could do to traffic. Again, don't want another situation like we have, at the donut shop. So again, I'm not in favor of it. But that's just me.
At this time, there's,
Are you allowed to put conditions on a variance? I'm just not,
I'm not putting any conditions on it,
okay.
and I don't know the answer to that.
Right. Neither do I.
It would, I guess, I'd be
yes, we
glad
could
to
put variant.
I was just gonna say, 'cause
conditions on.
if something like a condition of having a 5-year lease presented to this board prior to opening with a 5-year renewal period might be something that would appease you for those parking spots, that's something that we can definitely work with the adjacent owner to make sure that we can show you a long-term access to those parking spots.
I guess perhaps if the provision said that if the lease doesn't get renewed, that the business has to close.
We wouldn't have enough parking, so I mean, we would ultimately be a
Right.
hazard to the road.
I-
I mean, if we shut down the town, they're gonna come shut us down anyways.
I'd much rather consider this after the planning board has had their review of it.
So in that sense, you're willing to let that board look at it?
Oh, I am.
As opposed to, so I guess I misunderstood.
Yeah.
You didn't feel comfortable about the fire department or the planning board, you prefer to have a look and see at this first? Because you
I
would
would.
vet
I think
your
they're-
questions. They may have to come up with an entire new scheme, and they would vet that as well. So, but here's my thing, we're doing a variance right now, and the way we're going is, if you're denied a variance here, okay, you can't come back to us for how long?
Oh, 2 years?
3 years.
So, I'm gonna make a suggestion to you, that you withdraw your request for a variance from us
Without prejudice.
without prejudice. And go
Words
to.
matter. They do matter.
And go to, to get the sign off from the planning board.
Okay.
And you'll come in with, whatever plan you end up with them, that's what you're gonna be looking at with us.
Sure. Then I'd ask to withdraw it without prejudice.
And you can hear, right, the tenor here is, we're really big on parking.
So that's good. Like I said, ultimately, when we go to these planning board special permit meetings, it's for conversations just like this, so that, if that came up, we'd say, okay, let us go back, let us get a lease that's long-term and present it back to you, because if that's what you guys need, you need. So I'm glad it got brought up. We'll deal with it before we go to planning board now, so that we have something long-term in place to show that the parking's there. So I'm glad for the feedback. I think it's beneficial.
I totally agree with that concept. I mean, when they come back, I'd love to see more in writing of how the traffic flow is gonna go. And my big thing is, the Dunkin', and we were on the board at that time, me and you, George, and John, with the gas station there. And you come up and the traffic's just lined up forever. So, I mean, I'm not saying that's gonna be the case, but I would like to see more information on that.
And we can bring the whole traffic story for you.
So that I can look at it and say, okay, the parking, How's that gonna work with the flow? Planning board ahead of time. I think there's not enough for me right now. I agree with Wes. I'm not comfortable.
Sure.
So I think it's, you know,
So I guess you would
Pull it
just
back.
withdraw.
I would ask to withdraw without prejudice. Allow us to come back after we have more information and potentially a special permit approval from the planning board
I make a motion, we allow them to withdraw their petition
without prejudice.
without prejudice.
I second that motion.
Motion's been made and seconded to allow them to withdraw the motion without prejudice. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Opposed?
Oops, sorry. Thank you very much.
I know we'll be
Motion
seeing you
carries.
again anyway.
You want to
Yes.
take that? Yeah.
Yes, please, if we could. For the blind people. I'm one of
I
them.
can admit it. I'm blind. Thanks.
Thanks again.
Oh, okay. Next on the agenda is the approval of the July 1st meeting.
It was August 12th.
August 12th meeting, I'm sorry. I can't vote on that.
So let's see. The only three that can are Hugh, me, and Wes. That's it. The other guys,
I wasn't there.
I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes as presented here.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
All those, yeah. Go ahead.
Opposed, none.
I'm not here.
Okay. Well, no, you weren't here.
Right.
So, we accepted the minutes, 3-0.
Is Roberto still on?
He was on at the time, but he's not here.
No, is he on now?
Oh, I thought he.
Yeah, he was moving.
Moved to Canada?
Yeah, Fabian.
So he has moved,
I don't know that.
but he's still a board member.
I don't know that either. He, as far as you know, he's still.
As far as I know, yeah, I
Okay.
haven't heard anything.
Is there any other old business, new business?
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Motion's been made to adjourn. Do I hear a second?
I second that.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Yeah.